I rate these 5 as S tier just based on the utility of the kits. Absolutely incredible.
But you don't necessarily need to run those 5.
Exactly.
Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to HitScan. We're going to be talking about what are the best and worst agents objectively, why people view Brimstone better than Viper as an example, but also talk about why none of that matters, at least not in the same way as it does for something like Overwatch, where the meta really dictates what you can and can't play. In this video I am joined by Tavik, who most of you know was an ex-Overwatch League pro, played a lot of Overwatch, but has also been involved in a lot of Valorant early tournaments in the EU scene, getting to semi-finals and even winning a couple too. Before we get started, I did want to shout out Omen. We have been working with Omen for a couple of years. We made a lot of Overwatch League analytical content with them, and me and Miska both use their laptops. I do want to talk about them towards the end of this video, maybe even talking about future content that we could do, but let's get straight into this video.
Would you say that like what you think as well kind of matches what other people that you've been playing with think, but also what has been played in stuff like the T1 tournaments, the show matches that we've seen from 100 Thieves? Would you say that all of those tournaments seem to match up with your opinions and who is good, who isn't as good, who should be played more, that kind of thing?
No, definitely. Most of the agents that I think is like almost a must has basically always been played in the winning team, so to say.
Before we start talking about the characters which are good, which are bad, I did want to ask, what is like the difference between a character that you'd consider like a must pick? Is it kind of like Overwatch where you really want to be playing the best characters because if you don't you're going to lose, or you know, would you people consider playing Viper throwing? Is it that kind of thing? Or
I wouldn't really say that there's you must have this, or like if they have that and you have this, you'll definitely lose. I don't think it's as black and white as that, just because there's another element to this game, which is the gunplay, which is the shooting part, which it kind of overshadows whatever champions you're picking. But assuming that you go against a opponent that is just as good as you in just raw aim mechanics or just mechanics in general, you are gonna have a tougher time to win against this opponent, just because you might just be lacking some utility that you should otherwise have to have an easy time to take the aim duels that favors your position that you're in, or favors you in general.
realistically, how much separates the best from the worst? Because it doesn't really feel like a lot, especially this early on where there isn't a meta, and I don't really think there would be either, just based off what we've said so far.
No, the only meta is, do you want to play the Vandal or do you want to play the Phantom?
So who does that leave for like the S tier? We might as well focus on them, because I feel, why is it that like Cypher, Brimstone and Breach are as good as they are? Why are they considered must pick in your eyes? Especially Breach. He's on the fence, I feel.
Yeah. So like, you have the information game from Cypher and Sova, where it doesn't matter if you're attacking or defending, you will have the information forward. Doesn't matter really wherever you are on the map, you will have the aggressive information with both of them basically. And with that you can make pushes, you can take the map over, you can box the enemies in so that you are coming from all angles and just like basically finishing them off. And in order to secure like a very good execution of this boxing, if you now decide to do like play some sort of like playstyle similar to that, what you can do is that you have a Breach on the team where his flashes is twice as good as Phoenix, because they're easier to pull off, they last longer, and they are more devastating if you get hit by them. He not only does he have his flash, he also has his E ability, which is basically a big stun where you cannot shoot properly. You need to click every time you get hit by it, and it forces people out of their positions. If you stand in it and somebody like takes a duel with you, you are basically gonna lose. Like, there's not many times you're gonna win that duel. And then of course he also has his Q ability. No, it's his C ability. Sorry, where he puts this big blast on the wall, and if you don't move out of it, you die. Breach is just really undervalued. I really feel like I don't feel like people are really taking a look into Breach and his kit, because I think his just utility kit is just straight up better than Phoenix. Phoenix Ultimate though is incredibly strong, in just taking information, but you don't really need that sort of information taking with the ultimate when you have a Cypher and a Sova.
Brimstone, Cypher, Breach you'd consider like the top tier. Like very much must picks, would be played all of the time, and Sova as well, yeah. So that's 5 slots already taken up with these characters. What's the ideal person to fit into the 5th slot?
I don't think that Cypher is a must-have. I don't think Sova is a must-have on every single map. There's maps we can make use of one of them. And now I'm not saying like mentioning that you can change up Brimstone or Breach, because I just think the kits should be like kind of a staple in a sense, just because of how much utility they bring. Obviously you don't need that always. You can make it work, otherwise you just need to, well, the game is about clicking heads. You just gotta click their heads. It doesn't matter if they have smokes or a bunch of flashes or whatnot. Click their heads, forehead. And if you really want to bring the Sage in, and I think most people are going to want to, because the healing orb is really good and the rest is also really good. So I rate these 5 as S tier, just based on the utility of the kits is absolutely incredible.
But you don't necessarily need to run those 5.
Exactly.
They're just, if you're good at those heroes, you can do a lot.
Exactly. Like, it's not just that about being good either. It's about like, do you not find these other heroes fun, basically? Because I mean, it is a video game after all, and in the core sense of it, as long as you're having fun, and if you want to play these agents, then you know, you obviously you can make them work, but you gotta also realize, where am I strong? In what positions am I strong? And I gotta play to those strengths. It's a little bit like Overwatch there, but in a sense that my kits can only help me so much, and it's not just about clicking heads, but in the core gameplay you gotta win those fights. So in the core gameplay it is just about clicking heads. However, your kits can make it so it's easier to click the heads. So what you gotta do, whatever you can to make yourself useful, so that you have an easy time clicking it. So whatever you guys do, you just make sure that you're always putting yourself in a favorable positions by not just rushing it down B.
With the characters that maybe not as useful all of the time like some others, so in your eyes, what characters are sort of bottom of the tier list? What characters do you think have very little use, I suppose, in comparison to other people?
I think the 2 right now that are basically at the bottom of that list without in today's eyes is Viper and Jett. But Jett is kind of like a little bit of a question mark, because everybody is still like kind of like learning the game. In core, Jett is a pub stomper, and since nobody is like a complete pro player, nobody like has completely figured out how to play the game. It's not like today's CSGO basically, where you know the meta is kind of figured out in a sense, and then you know they kind of used to like go from there. But I think those 2, they don't really bring much utility to the team, but rather they need the team to be setting them up for success. So it's harder to play with those 2 agents on your team, because unless they are really good at shooting with the guns, they are not really gonna bring much to win in sort of utilities. So like I'm kind of like ranking the agents based on the utility, or like how useful the utility can be, and those 2 don't really bring that much, other than just kind of just raw fragging power.
Yeah, it's worth adding that, like, because this is a closed beta, and because the game's out so early, obviously experimentation's going to lead to some characters being considered better than most expected, but also because it is a closed beta, they can nerf and buff stuff, as they've done a bit of that on Raze recently too. But I still think it's worth everybody understanding where the game looks like currently and how that can change over the course of its future. Just wanted to sort of add that in as a bit of a PSA, I suppose. But kind of what's Viper's problem then? Because I remember seeing Mendo sort of mention it. Mendo was very aggressively like, she is bad other than her ultimate. But her kit looks fine, just straightforward. So what's her problem?
Its biggest problem is that her wall, it kind of just like, it goes down and it stays down. And other than just like blocking a little bit of LOS, and then if you stack that, she has a poison duration, or like she can only use so much poison at a time, and when you use the wall, and the bubble at the same time, they both drain the poison really fast. So you can't really, you don't really want to be using both at the same time, since that would like last for a short amount of time. But you still kind of have to, because those are her kits. Like, she kind of just need those to like buy time basically, as a defender's perspective, and kind of the same for attackers. It's hard for her to set up. It takes time for her wall to come down, and it gets super obvious most of the time, unless you're like trying to do some sort of fakes where she's gonna go. She puts that wall down and everybody sees coming down. Oh, she's coming down here on Haven C. They might just execute here. Oh, guys, be ready. I might just need some help soon. I see the Viper wall coming down.
Now that we've kind of got over those two characters who I think are worth adding, and you'd agree, they're not bad, right? They're not like terrible characters, but
no, not at all.
They're just not as useful in the right hands. Like, there's some really good Viper players out there. Forsen did really well in that tournament, might I add, and Jet as well is being played in these tournaments just because, like you said, it's just a good player playing her. That doesn't really want to worry about the utility. They don't want to worry about playing Breach or Phoenix and all of the minutiae about that. They just want to click heads and jump around.
That's the biggest part of the game, is still just clicking heads.
So, moving up sort of another tier then, what characters are better than Viper and Jet, but may not be as good as some of the other characters? Because this is where people's tier lists start to split up, so I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about.
Omen is a little bit kind of like, a little bit up there, but like, I would rate all the agents like 3 different groups, with the bottom tier being Viper and Jet. And like the next tier, the middle tier, will basically be Raze, Omen, Sage, and Phoenix. Is where I would rate them. Sage can be put up in my eyes like as the biggest tier as well. The only reason I don't want to do that is because of if you don't have a Sage on your team, you have so much incredible utility that can just like straight up win you. Like, so many fights will just win you bomb sites basically. Playing Sage is really good. Like, she's amazing because she can slow down a rush, or like just slow down a attack by like a ton. But there's also a different way that you can be playing this, which is retaking bomb sites. And she doesn't really bring too much from a retaking perspective. However, her healing is just like incredibly overpowered in any sort of eyes, just because like she just fixes almost any mistakes that you make with basically just putting the heal on you. And like, you can put her in any team comp and she will work.
I think Sage pretty much was played every single game from yesterday, and granted these are more show matches than actual tournaments, but saying that, you do have the likes of Brax and AZK playing in them and winning them, so clearly they're trying stuff out. Is it kind of like people are playing Sage because she's a safe choice?
This early on in the game, she's an incredible asset to any sort of lineup of agents, just because of the heal, and that is really good now, like early in the beginning. And then later on, when people really start figuring out the game, they will make less silly mistakes, where they would just take free poke damage, or they would just be taking, like random damage or whatever. Specifically, there's so many people that are playing Raze right now, and Raze is really good at just dealing poke damage. So seeing so much Raze is definitely gonna increase the usefulness of Sage, just because of, oh, you took some damage from the nade, or like you took lethal damage from that nade, I'm just gonna heal you up and you're back. And then we have their utility cannot come back from that, but my healing orb is back here in 30 seconds.
I figured this video was worth making just because it's a better understanding of what the game looks like based off what people have done in competitive play, right? So, on that note, are there any final things that you want to go over before we finish up this video? Anything you want to plug? There's Twitch Drop still enabled on all channels now, so...
I mean, I'm streaming every day, and I'm streaming many hours every day, and I've been streaming most of my scrims as well. I've been streaming every single one of my scrims. So if you want to see competitive play, you should definitely look at my channel, which is twitch.tv/TwickQE, and that's pretty much it.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Tavik for being in this video. You can find all of his details in the description below. But also thanks to Omen for supporting this video too. We made a lot of Overwatch League analytical content with Omen because they were the PC provider for the Overwatch League. Look into the future, I'd love to be able to do some like esports related content for Valorant alongside Omen. I'm really curious what you guys want to hear, whether you want how to play certain parts of the map guides, certain character guides in the future. Maybe we can even do an Omen guide with Omen. You know, the character and the actual company. That might be quite cool. I'm not too sure. But that's like the good thing of us rebranding to HitScan, being able to do a multitude of different things in the future. And as somebody that wants to try and cast more Valorant and get more involved in the esports scene, I think it'd be really cool to try and marry those two things together. But I am really curious to hear what you guys think in the comments below about that, but also about everything else you've heard in this video. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.